Hi, it's Lizzie. Thanks for listening in. We're taking a break for the summer. While we do, I'd like to share one of my favourite episodes from the 2025 season. Enjoy! Where do you find God? Almost sounds like a loaded question, doesn't it? I mean, if God was someone you could find, wouldn't everyone be out searching? Well, rather than looking for something elusive, like a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, I reckon it's more about learning to recognise the way God is already present to us in our everyday lives. I'm Lizzie Oakes, and this is Where Do You Find God? My guest on the podcast today is Gloriana Pilgrim. Now, Gloriana was born and raised in the conservative Christian community of Gloriavale. And almost 5 years ago, Gloriana and her husband Zion and their children left the community to start a new life. In fact, currently at the time of recording this podcast, there's a documentary you can see on Shine TV which tells some of the family story called Leaving Gloriavale. Hi, Gloriana. Welcome to Where Do You Find God?
Hi, Lizzie. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, because we were just talking, and I know you haven't you made the documentary, which was great, but you haven't done anything like this before, have you? Sort of had other interviews.
No, this is new.
So thanks for saying yes. I'm thinking for you and your family that in the last 5 years there's been many new experiences. What were some of the things that impacted you the most when you first left in terms of just life outside of Gloriavale? What, things you saw, processes you had to go through? Can you cast your mind back?
Yeah, so the first two that come to mind, the biggest surprise initially was the kindness of people and just the local communities, and how just complete strangers just rolled up and dropped off meals and gave us clothes and just things that I never thought would happen. And that leads to the second thing, which was that there were other Christians in New Zealand, because I had been so isolated in my thinking and in travel that I just didn't know that there were actually a lot of other people who loved the Lord. And that was just mind-blowing.
Oh, wow. So what, you were told that there were no other Christians, that you guys were the only ones?
Well, in New Zealand. It was kind of like, we were kind of like the only true Christians. Obviously, if people were in countries where they were being persecuted and killed for their faith, they must be authentic Christians. But just because of the criteria that the community had for what it meant to be a Christian, very legalistic, it meant that no one else really fitted the bill.
Yeah. It's funny you should say that, because actually the church that I first went to when I was a young girl, from 12, and I was kind of there till 16, and then I went off and did some other things, but they very much believed that too. Like, I was a young girl starting high school, I remember thinking, oh, there's all these other churches, but like you're saying, oh, they're not real Christians, we're the only Christians. I don't know how that made you feel, but for me, it made me feel really heavy. Like, life felt quite oppressive.
It was. It made me feel like God was not very big, because if all the great things that God did were like boiled down to this little place on the west coast of New Zealand, you just thought, well, why aren't bigger things happening in the world than just us?
That's true. I mean, if he's the creator of heaven and earth, right, in the whole world. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
So now that you've left the community and it's been nearly 5 years, are you able to have any contact with your loved ones there, back in Gloriavale?
I am able to. I can email and I can phone. That those avenues have been opened up now. It's still very limited, and that is mainly due to the mindset of my family there, just because they are afraid of the contact, they're afraid of how it might change them. It's the mind control of the place more than the actual physical barriers.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you the question that I ask everyone, but I am going to sort of skewer it through, the process that you've been of this big life change. So Gloriana, in Acts chapter 17, verse 27, it says, God intended that they would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. So my question for you right here, right now, in this moment in time, Gloriana, is where do you find God?
I think my first answer is in reading the scriptures, reading his promises. His word is just so powerful and it speaks to my heart. It takes away the fear and the anxiety that was ingrained in there for all those years. It reassures me that I am loved by God and that he's close.
Yes.
I love worship songs. I love to listen to worship songs while I'm painting because I'm a part-time artist as well as raising my family.
Lovely.
So, yeah, that is really cool. It's usually just late at night once the kids are asleep. So that's my quiet time. And I just have my favourite playlists playing away. And I feel like I'm just there with the Lord and I've got my paintbrushes in my hand. And that is a really special thing that I get to do because I'm creative and I know God is creative. And I love to see in nature how he's created all these beautiful things. And then it's a privilege for me to try and recreate some of that beauty on a canvas.
Mm. What kind of painting do you do? Do you use oils or acrylics? Or?
Yeah, I paint in acrylics and I'm usually doing landscapes or wildlife art at the moment. But, I want to branch out into a whole range of things and see where it takes me. Yeah,
you go, girl. You never know where God's going to lead you on this journey. I love to hear that because I'm a creative person too, and it's definitely an access point to encountering God's presence, but also being refreshed, right, from just life. It sounds like, busy days, families, and then you have that time in your evening to do something really special.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. Yeah. Gloriana, in an email conversation we had earlier today, you said to me, a difficult part of my life was leaving Gloriavale, leaving there, but also the time when God showed how close he was. So in that space, tell me about that and where did you find God and how close was he and tell us about what that experience was like.
Okay, well, I think I'll need to go back sort of to my earlier memories growing up as a child because I learnt the scripture, ask and you will receive, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be opened. And that, I laid hold of that. I just believed it right from a young person. And so I had that simple childlike faith that God was right there and I could speak to him.
Yeah.
But then as I became an adult in the community, I felt like there was this growing distance between God and myself. And it really concerned me. And I was actually quite confused about what was happening because I really wanted a closer relationship with God. And I always wanted to please him. I was actually desperate to please him. But the thing that was in my way was that I thought that meant pleasing the leadership. Because we'd been taught that they were God's spokespeople on earth and that if we wanted to live a more godly life and be closer to God, we just needed to try harder to make them happy. Mm. And so I was actually kind of conflicted because my husband and I actually started reading the scriptures together. We were both on a similar journey and we wanted more. We were hungering and thirsting after righteousness. And I was so afraid. I was actually terrified because every step that I made closer to God was pulling me further away from the community.
Yeah.
And that might sound strange, but it's like everything I've been taught was to put blind faith in the leadership. And yet I felt like God was calling me to put that trust in him and that him and the leaders were actually not the same thing. And the church that I've been brought up in wasn't everything that God was doing. Mm. I could actually start to see there were really big issues that I couldn't deny.
Wow, hold that there. So you started to see that, say that but again, you started to see?
There were some very big issues that I could not deny. if I was going to be honest.
Yes.
And God is a God of truth. And if we seek him, he will lead us to truth, and we can't stay blind to
It's interesting that you said if you were going to be honest, but I would imagine in the environment that you lived that it wasn't really about being honest. It was about denying how you felt and what you saw. And like you say, just having blind faith.
So we had been taught to not trust ourselves, not trust our own perspective. Your own opinion was irrelevant. Yeah, your whole salvation hung on this idea of surrendering your whole will, perspective, everything about yourself, complete self-denial.
Yeah, so this journey that you and your husband Zion started to go on, and you started to, hunger and thirst more for God, and you started to doubt the leadership. How many years were you on that part of the journey before you made the decision to leave?
It was only about 3 months.
Wow.
For me.
3 months.
Yeah, I know. It was like the most, looking back, it's exciting to look at, but it was hard.
Must have been a bit of a head rush.
I mean, honestly, I thought I was losing my mind. Nothing made sense. I didn't know what was right anymore. I was, I thought I was being deceived.
Yeah.
I was just broken. I was at the end of myself. I had nothing left. And it was at that point, in desperation one night, I just cried out to God. I cried out to him with everything I had, because I was so afraid that my decisions were actually going to make me be separate to God, that he would desert me. And that was the thing that meant the most to me. And all my life, I had 12 children. I had a husband who loved me. I had family. But the thing that meant the most to me was that relationship with God. And I was so terrified. And in that moment of desperation, God did something that was so special for me. I felt his physical presence and his arms wrapped around me, and he held me, and he told me that he loved me. And I don't know how he told me, but I knew. I felt this peace. I felt more loved than I'd ever felt before. He healed my broken heart. He gave me this assurance that nothing could separate me from his love.
Yeah.
And that, whatever it was that God did for me, that gave me strength. And it gave me a peace that I could follow the next steps. And it was within days that we found out we'd have to leave the community.
Wow.
Yeah, and I look back on that situation particularly when I'm having hard times and when I question, have I done the right thing? Have I made the right choices in life? And I just know God was there, and he's proven himself to me over and over again. And it's in those times when we have nothing else.
Yes.
When we're most afraid, when we know that we're weak, that he proves himself to be strong.
That beautiful picture you talk of God, sensing his presence, his arms around you. You don't know how you knew that you were loved, but you just knew because you were experiencing it. Reminds me so much of that scripture, perfect love casts out all fear. And I'm thinking of you encountering, wow, it just actually makes me want to cry. I'm thinking of you encountering fresh waves of God's love, and that love giving you the confidence and the bravery to say to your husband, Zion, yes, let's make this decision for us, and not just us, but your 12 children.
Yeah. God changed my mind. I couldn't have done it on my own. I was just very devoted to the community and to the lifestyle and to the hundreds of people there who I still love.
Of course.
And it was the hardest thing to walk away from them. But, God has led us, and he's got his reasons, and I trust his plan in everything, and because of what he's done for us.
Yeah. So, you're in a space which I guess, would you call it mind control? when you were in Gloriavale?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And now you've been transformed by the love of God, and it's where perfect love is cast out all fear, and being transformed by the renewing of your mind.
It's layers and layers, and it doesn't just happen overnight.
No, of course not. And I feel like 5 years probably isn't really that long into your journey, is it? It's kind of nothing.
Not really. And I think every person's different as well.
Yeah.
And I think I had to learn to be patient with myself and trust that God would do the work in me that he wanted done. And I couldn't rush it. I can't just make myself be like somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know where I am right now, and it's wonderful. I know God shows his presence to me every day in so many ways. And I'm just so happy about what he's done, but it hasn't been easy.
Yeah. Gloriana, to somebody who's going to be listening to this podcast and listening right now, and they're in a situation totally different than yours, but they're recognizing what you're talking about in terms of being controlled, learning not to trust themselves, not having the power to use their own voice, and yet they're feeling that gentle leading of God's presence for them to perhaps make a really brave change like you. What would you say to that person, Gloriana?
I would say put your trust in Jesus, because he will lead you. Don't trust anything else. Let go of everything else, and God will be there.
And now, reflecting back of this journey of your life, and you're in this new part of your life, it's like a 5-year-old, starts school, and there's all these different friends, and there's all these different things to learn, and there's all these different things to play with, and different foods to taste, and different places to see. What is it you now know about this God who's with you now that you didn't know before you left Gloriavale?
He's really big, and he's really powerful, and I can trust him. I can trust him with my failings and my mistakes, and they don't scare him. I don't actually have to control my destiny, because I think God's got a plan.
Yeah.
And he's bigger than where I fail and where I mess up. Yeah, I think it's so different when you know that God doesn't expect us to be perfect before he'll love us.
I love that.
And he loves me in my weakness and my mistakes. When I forget to ask him for help, he's still there, and he still loves me. And I think that's the thing. It's his unconditional love. And that's the thing I didn't understand once upon a time.
Once upon a time.
Yeah.
Gloriana Pilgrim, thank you so much for joining me today on Where Do You Find God?
Thank you, Lizzie.
Tune in every Wednesday afternoon at 4:30 on Sanctuary, or listen and subscribe via your favourite podcast platform, and give us a review so others can find us.